Hi everyone, welcome to Crossing the Gaspe by ATV, Part 2. In Part 1 I showed 2 days of our trip, including the road trip to our starting point of Amqui, and our first day on the trail, which led us to Point-a-la-Croix. Our destination for Day 3 is New Carlisle. We drove over 240 kilometers, which is over 200 miles, and we had over 4,000 meters of elevation changes. We ran into a few mechanical problems, which kept us from getting to our destination until after 10 p.m. that night, but it's all part of the adventure. We were up early and ate breakfast at the Pastali restaurant, which is attached to the hotel. After that, we drove to a gas station to top up. We got some ice and some snacks for the day. This is the beginning of Day 2. We are at Point-a-la-Croix, gassing up, and we're getting ready to head to New Carlisle. It's a long day today, about 250 to 260 kilometers, and it was really dry and dusty yesterday. And so we had to have a lot of space in between. And as you can see, some of the guys are guzzling down the water still. The gas station had a hose outside, and they were gracious enough to let us borrow it so that we could wash out a few of our radiators, especially Dale's Yamaha. It's kind of a design flaw on these first generation YXZs. The radiator was in a bad spot and it would always clog up with mud and overheat several times. I think the newer machines have got that fixed, and they've got the radiator up high on the back of the machines now.
Oh yeah, she's a dirty rat.
Looks like chocolate milk coming out.
Still dirty, is it?
Oh yeah, give her a minute, I'd say. Dale absolutely loves his Yamaha, except for that radiator issue. I mentioned in Part 1 how the trails are width restricted in Quebec to 66 inches. And like I mentioned also before, they aren't messing around. It really is just about 66 inches. If you're a tiny bit wider than that, you're probably not going to get through in some places. Oh, there's the Campbellton Bridge way over there. Probably won't see it in this video. Picture stop!
New pilot today, what's wrong? Oh, never mind. I thought I seen the oil light on.
We don't have our stops planned for the day. We just kind of play it by ear. When we come across a nice place, we usually just stop and get out and take a few pictures.
Looks like we're at top of the ski hill.
Taking pictures of people taking pictures.
First stop of the day.
Oh, there he goes. He's walking away. See him? He just went up to the left. You might see him in the woods here. No, there he is. Two of them. There's two of them. They just ran up in that trail. Remember what I said earlier about things being trail restricted to 66 inches? Well, we've come across this bridge. The night before, we came across this going the other direction, and everyone got across no problem. But this morning, the problem is it's a tight left turn, and Bruce and Tony are in the Defender Max, which is really long, and they end up having a really hard time trying to get across this bridge. Luckily for them, the highway was right behind us, so they were able to back up, drive a short distance down the highway, and then get back onto the trail again.
I don't think you'll make it.
Nope. Yeah, you won't make that.
Well, your back tire is never going to make it.
No, yeah, you're too big. You're going to have to back out. Yeah.
Oh, two more moves.
Just baby ones, too.
They're running up the trail right in front of me. One just jumped off the trail to the right. He's still running.
So that's 4 moose I've seen already, and now we come up upon a few a grouse, which was kind of funny. It was blocking the road because in the brush, kind of on the left of the trail, there was a bunch of little babies that were only a couple inches tall that she was worried about protecting. I didn't want to move forward until she got off the trail.
You should have seen how small the little ones were. I wonder if we can see any more.
That happened to us maybe 4 or 5 times throughout the entire week.
Whoa.
You can probably hear that rattling in the background. Turns out that was a U-joint that I had that was in bad shape, and luckily it made me all the way across the Gaspe, but I had it replaced when I got back home. Before we got to this bridge, we were on a steep descent for a long time coming down out of the mountains, and unfortunately you just can't really tell on camera how steep these declines are.
You got an inch. No, you're gonna hit. Am I? No, you got an inch.
In case you're wondering, the front end of the Defender at the wheels is 65 inches. As you can see, there's not much room.
Oh man. Just a little bit.
Not a lot of room for Bill's Talon either.
Oh, that's a cool shot.
No problem for John's Maverick Trail. Actually, he doesn't have that anymore. He sold that after that trip, and now he has a Honda Talon, a 2023, one of those new black ones. There was a little trail down to the water here, and it was such a nice spot we contemplated staying for a bit for a break, but we hadn't been on the trail all that long, so we decided to just keep moving ahead and finding another spot to stop. There's a section of road you're legally allowed to drive on that gets you from one section of the trail to the other, and there's a corner store right across this bridge up here, so we decided to stay there and stop for a little bit and have our break there. It was only about 11 a.m. here, so it wasn't time for lunch, but we decided to stop, have a break, get some water, stuff like that, maybe a Red Bull even. And another bridge. You know, one thing I noticed here in the Gaspe is how crystal clear the water is. I noticed it all the time, and I forgot until I started reviewing these videos, but the water is just pristine. And it has a really nice, like, emerald green color to it in a lot of places. My Can-Am Commander is 58 inches wide at the wheels, but if you include the fenders, it's 62.5 inches.
Yeah, Terrence was just as tight. Yeah. Dan's good.
Inside there.
Yeah, it's hot, man. Especially in your machine, like all closed in.
I've been driving with the door open.
Have you? Getting some air?
I get way back from Dale, and then I can kind of just sit there and open the door and get some air.
Yeah, the suicide doors.
Dwayne's machine's got a full cab with a windshield that doesn't flip up, and it's 90 degrees outside. He's baking like a meatloaf in there. Tony blew a plug on his back right tire they have to try to fix again.
Oh, you bought one.
The whole boys tonight. I told him we need to put more in. He didn't believe me.
Yep, there's a bubble.
I think he popped out.
Yeah. What is it, Red? Oh my God.
They're pink like a rooster.
Got her. Wing further now, further. Now pull quick and sharp. That's how you do it.
That's how you pull.
There we go. That's done.
The boys fixed up their tire and we were back on the dusty trail. Literally the dusty trail. The flat tire held us up a bit and we still had a really long way to go, so we decided to hurry up the pace a little bit to try to make up some time. And then Terrence blew his belt. It shredded into a bunch of pieces. We found out what happened was I gave him an old back window that I had, one of those soft folding windows you can put on the back, and he didn't realize when he put it down he didn't make room for his air vents because he's got the XMR that has the snorkel on the back. And that's where it grabs his air from. And it was so hot that day, and he wasn't getting enough fresh air in there, and it overheated and blew his belt. And to make things even worse for the poor guy, a bunch of the bolts had seized that were on the belt housing because the last time the belt was changed, they were tightened too much past their torque specs. It took a lot of work for those guys. They ended up having to drill the bolts out. It was about 2:45 and we were well past lunch, but we hadn't eaten lunch yet, so we decided to take this opportunity to set the barbecue up and start cooking some food while those poor fellows were trying to fix the machine.
Oh, that looks good. Ooh, deviled egg. Not deviled. Pickled.
Pickled. Deviled eggs.
Hey guys, there's a whole thing of hand cleaners here.
So what other screws stuck?
On the very bottom, exact same thing. Two of them.
Two of them.
That's all right. Don't worry about that.
To get the belt fixed, we packed away the gear, we get back on the trail. We didn't stop again for quite a while because we needed to make up some serious time. And we made up time until Tony blew a flat in his back left tire. The boys fixed up their tire, and it held for about an hour and a half.
Won't take long if we pick through it here.
That tire seemed to be a lost cause, so they decided to put the spare wheel on.
Oh, did you?
Hold on, she might not lift with that either. That's gonna look different.
Tony's spare wheel is the same size as his front wheel and tire, which is the same thing that I do because they'll fit on the front and they'll fit on the back. It looks odd when you have a front tire on the back because they're narrower, but they will get you by.
Oh, he might be able to jack it up a bit more.
He's not. In there. A little bit more. Okay. A little tiny bit more. There. Okay.
That's one heck of a jack. Awesome.
The spare tire they put on is quite a bit narrower than the one that came off, but it worked perfect all week. They got the tire fixed, and we still had a long way to go. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the things I really like about this Quebec trip is the wide range of trails you do every day. You could be at sea level, then 5 minutes later you're over 1,000 feet up, and then another 10 minutes after that you're back down to sea level again. Just after this section we started a really long, very steep ascent. We couldn't believe how steep it was. When we get to the top, there was a really nice area where we could go take some pictures, and it worked out really well because the sun was nice and low in the sky.
That was a steep one, huh?
Yeah.
Wasn't that something?
We're at the south.
I was wondering why they said you're not allowed to have pastures on ATVs.
Yeah.
Look at all you fools. This is awesome.
Why is she jiggly?
No, I'm just kidding.
Don't go over capacity there. Oh, look at that. That's cool. Beautiful. Oh, you guys. Wow. Be a good drone spot. It would be. Oh, yeah.
Here's a quick rundown so far of where we're at. The green point is where we started the day at Point-a-la-Croix, and the picture icon here is where we're currently at, and the red icon on the far right there is where we're going for the day. So it's just about getting dark and we have a long way to go yet. And this satellite view shows you how steep that hill was. There were signs at the bottom that Dwayne mentioned where it said ATVs were not allowed to have 2 passengers on it, and this is why. This hill rather was so steep that if you had somebody in the back, I could totally see your front wheels coming up and someone rolling over backwards. We finally made it to our hotel at around 10 p.m. and it was a nice little spot. It was called La Maison Blanche, and it was in the town of New Carlisle. I wouldn't recommend staying there. If I were to do this trip again, I wouldn't go back there. The rooms were really small. There wasn't much in New Carlisle. It was kind of difficult to find breakfast the next day. We had to drive a ways up the road and then come back to backtrack. My friend Eric did this trip, and I'll show you here on the map what he did compared to what we did. This is us where we stayed at New Carlisle. And he went over to this town over here, and he stayed at the hotel called the Riotel Bonaventure, and it was much easier to get to, and there were more amenities in town. I would definitely recommend that instead of what we did. Day 3 on the trail. We traveled to Perce, which was over 180 kilometers or about 110 miles. We saw some absolutely beautiful scenery, and we had a few technical mishaps, but nothing we couldn't handle.
He's cranky in the morning.
Brotherly love.
Especially when I stole his wallet.
Yeah, I just had a panic attack. I go looking for a wallet everywhere. Mr. Man just decides to take it and walk over to the hotel.
And pay with your wallet. Wasn't enough money in there.
Oh.
Did you wash your radiator, Howie? You washed the rat out again?
Oh yeah. Got her all cleaned up.
We packed up the machines, we went inside and paid our bill, then we drove about 5 kilometers or 3 miles up the road until we found a gas station. There happened to be a Tim Hortons restaurant right next to it, which was great, so we had breakfast there. This was the mileage on my odometer from the day before, 250 kilometers. We finally noticed that somebody was missing a gas cap from some point yesterday, and I don't know why we started doing that, but it seemed to be a trend we continued through the week for a few of us. Luckily, we had enough plastic and wraps to be able to tie people's gas tanks off so that there was no water and dirt getting in there. We had to wait a minute for Bambi and his mother to realize we weren't a threat until they walked away. I have a story you're not going to believe. Howie was driving down the trail and the bolt on his oil pan dropped off and he lost all the oil in his engine. It was just changed at the dealer before he came here and they must have forgot to tighten it up. We went back and followed the oil trail and actually found the bolt on the crusher washer, which was not used. It didn't have any mark on it at all.
I think they do.
I'm gonna pour 2 in anyway.
Well, yeah, put 2 in and we'll check.
Finally got to get a spare tire. Now I gotta get to carry oil.
Yeah.
I got oil too, Bill.
Howie, you have to have a word with your dealer.
You get that right.
GPSs are worth their weight in gold on this trip because there's so many trails in Quebec that you're crossing one and there's like one on either side and then there's another one 50 feet down, so you have to be zoomed in close to make sure you're on the right trail.
I remember this bridge.
Look at the color of the water under the bridge here. It's beautiful. This would actually be a great spot to camp if you were bringing your camping gear and your tents with you. We were starting to get pretty hungry, and a few minutes later we found this nice bridge, and there was actually a trail not far from it that took you down to the water, so that's where we set up our barbecues and things like that for lunch.
Picture time, Howie.
What?
Picture time.
Yeah.
Oh, your thing broke off.
I know it did. I've been banging.
Ah, what a drag.
She cold?
Oh, she's chilling.
After we get back on the trail, we stopped for gas in a town called Chandler, and then we get back on the trail again, and we found this long section that went through power lines, and it seemed to go on forever. It was like 8 or 10 kilometers, like completely straight. Around 6 p.m. we came across a look-off tower that we decided to go check out and walk up to the top. It overlooked this nice valley with a bridge on the other side that we end up having to drive across as well. This area is called Grande Rivière, I believe. There's a big bridge. Oh, you know what? That's where we're going. There's the bridge, yeah.
The bridge.
That's the bridge. The bridge.
The bridge. Holy shit. Uh-oh. You got an inch. Yeah, keep going. Mirrors. Mirrors.
Oh, good. I got lots of space. Oh, you were on that. Oh, you weren't supposed to do that.
On the bridge?
No, you're up on the side of
As
that.
long as you fit.
Go all the way back to that. You were riding that, I think. Up to that an inch.
You're on there.
Oh, you're doing it.
Stay to your left a little bit, if you can.
Left.
The driver says, yeah, okay, you're good. You're still clear. I can see you. Yeah, you're clear on both sides. Just keep it totally straight. It's a tight squeeze, though.
You think? A little bit. There, come on. Yeah, when you get through. I want to film them.
Go down.
Don't steer.
Go get in front of me.
Oh yeah, that's tight. That's tight. We're out. You got lots of room. Yeah, I was thinking about doing that, to be honest. You want me to do it? The other boys might run over it though. Pretty cool.
If it wasn't raining, it would have been perfect to drive across that with my 360 camera.
Oh, he's tight.
Terrence's front tires are just clearing, but if you look close at the back, his back ones look like they're riding up over the boards a bit. And the tires on Bill's machine, all four of them all rubbed on both sides. You can see the streaks on the tires there. It's pretty funny.
Look at that. He was rubbing hard.
What happened to you?
I was getting over. One way or the other.
Tony and Bruce actually saw the beaver there working on his dam. I didn't see it by the time I got there.
Engine braking for the rest of it. You just missed it.
We are almost to Perce now, and when you get there, there's this big rock out in the ocean, and it's the most amazing view when you're driving in on the paved road coming in. You see it over the crest of a hill just as you're coming to town, and the video here does not do it justice at all. Like, you have to see it in person. It's quite something.
There's a truck coming in. No, you're good.
Yeah, right here. I don't know where reception is. But...
The hotel we stayed at was called the Hotel Fleur de Lis, right on the water and with an excellent view of the Perce Rock. If you stay here, make sure you ask them for a waterside view. There was a restaurant right next door. It was just walking distance. It was great. Except the only problem was there was no one there that spoke any English. So it was funny. We were all struggling because most of us don't speak French very well. And we were using Google Translate and Microsoft Translate and other things to try to get by. And you know what? It was fine. Everyone was fed. No one went hungry. Stay tuned for part 3. Oh yeah, that's not good.